All right, welcome to a new episode of Piecing It Together, the podcast where we take a look at a new movie and try to figure out what movies inspired it. And today on the show, we are talking about the remake of Child's Play, the killer doll horror movie starring everyone's favorite doll, Chucky. It is a fun little remake that it doesn't do everything right, but it certainly has enough going for it that it is a pretty fun little movie. And with me for the episode, first-time co-host Adam Wells, who is an old friend of mine from years and years and years ago. We went to summer camp together, and he's a member of our Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces Facebook group. And so we've been chatting about movies in there and figured he would be a great guest to have on the show. And we had a great conversation about Child's Play. So before we get into that conversation, I do want to remind you to make sure you are subscribed to Piecing It Together on your podcast app of choice. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pocket Casts, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, a whole bunch of other apps. We're on like dozens of apps. And if you listen to podcasts on an app that we're not on, let us know and we will get on that app. We want to be wherever you're listening to podcasts. You can also follow us on social media at Piecing Pod. Join that Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces group I was just talking about. And share the show with your friends. That would be awesome. So I think that's enough for right now. Why don't we jump into this conversation about the new remake of Child's Play? All right, so today on the show, we've got a little bit of a blast from the past in subject matter, as well as my co-host. First time on the show, we've got with us a friend of mine. I haven't seen him in like 25 years or something like that since we used to go to Jew camp together. Everybody, Adam Wells is with us on the show. Adam, hey, it's great to have you here.
It's great to be here, Dave. Hello, movie fans out there. Hoping to put on a good show for you guys.
This is going to be fun. Adam is a member of our Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces group, and I think I've talked to him more in the last year than I talked to him in 25 years of, maybe a catch up here and there. But now we get to talk about movies all the time, so it's kind of awesome.
Well, I mean, that's the wonderful thing about Facebook and a lot of these other programs and things like that is that instead of talking to myself about movies and just throwing it out, I can connect with other social-minded film nerds like myself and you,
Sure.
and get into deep discussions or toxic fandom.
Yeah, absolutely. There's plenty of that.
I know it really depends on which what day of the week you're looking for what.
So, it's your first time on the show, as I usually do. I like to have people tell people a little about themselves. So other than being someone who went to Jew camp, who are you, Adam Wells?
Who is Adam Wells? That's the question of the day. Well, for profession right now, I am an insurance broker, and you're probably wondering, what type of expert does that make me on film? Well, in that respect, none. I'm a big cinephile, which I believe you could still use in a proper context now, and people don't get weirded out.
We'll allow it.
Okay, good. Went to film school, worked on film sets, realized it wasn't for me. But, I watch a ton of movies. I read a lot of different subject matters on old films, new films, and I just overall love discussing film. It's a passion. It's a fun topic.
That's awesome. I mean, as far as even for me, I compose music for film, but I'm not really a filmmaker. And so it's like, I really just come to this as a lover of film. And, it's just a great way to, have an in-depth conversation about movies. And it's great to have all different kinds of voices on this show,
It is. I mean, I've been listening to some of the other episodes, and I really do like a lot of the different areas that people are coming from and how they view it, and it also gives me a fresh perspective, because if I didn't view it a couple of times watching it in one way, and I get to hear somebody else's opinion, and I get to look at it from their point of view, sometimes that actually does open my eyes a bit, and I sometimes enjoy it even more because somebody else was able to leave the door open, and I was, got a different perspective from it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's talk about some perspective. You are, I believe you're a pretty big horror movie fan. I kind of get that from the group. And Child's Play is just one of these classic properties in the history of horror movie characters. And here we are with a new one, a full-on reboot, which, as we know, the creator of Child's Play, I believe, is still out there trying to make more, continuing the story, but this has been kind of taken away from him, and it's a whole new take on the character and the idea.
Well, I think there's a lot of basically from what I've read is that it boils down to a rights issue.
Mm-hmm.
Don Mancini, who was the original screenwriter, along with producer David Kirshner, I think 10 years ago wanted to do their own reboot. However, because the first Child's Play rights were locked up with MGM,
Mm,
um, they couldn't reboot the first one. They can only continue with the sequels at Universal.
sure.
So while Don Mancini and company have been continuing with their Child's Play series, I think they've gotten up to 7 of them. And they're even doing a TV show that I'm looking forward to. I think it's a bit of a sore subject because Don Mancini had his view of how the movie should be remade, and
Mm-hmm.
the powers that be had another view. Um, and I myself, just a little background on in regards to my feelings about Chucky. Child's Play was one of the first horror movies. Actually, no, sorry, was the first horror movie that I had ever watched.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
yeah, growing up as a spoiled kid in Long Island, I had a television and cable in my bedroom, which, if you talk about that now, that doesn't sound like much, but we're also talking about the late 80s when
Sure.
still a lot of people
Yeah,
didn't even have cable. So, of course, I'm a 8, 9 year old, spoiled kid with a TV and cable in my room.
yeah.
And of course, when that happens and your parents tell you to go to bed, what is the first thing you do? You don't listen to them, you turn on the TV.
Oh, yeah.
So I turned on, I believe it was HBO, and the climax of Child's Play was on television.
Oh, you
And
got the good part.
oh, yeah. And I actually still had dolls at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that movie frightened me so much that I actually took all the toys on my bed, I believe, including Teddy Ruxpin and Cabbage Patch Kids, which were the inspiration, and
Uh-huh.
threw them in the closet because I'm thinking that I'm going to sleep tonight and they're going to kill me. The imagination of an 8, 9 year old. What do I
Sure.
know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, and I probably didn't really watch the Child's Play movies for another 2 or 3 years. And it's since you mentioned, Jew Camp, I do remember that you and I had actually spoken about Child's Play too, and I almost vaguely remember you trying to like freak me out a little bit with a like a postcard your mom sent you of
Mm.
uh, of of Chucky as a good guy doll.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
yes,
That is absolutely wild. And as we know, my memory is absolutely horrible, and I don't remember that at all. But that does seem potentially possible. Maybe. It's
I
kind
mean
of awesome.
it's weird that I actually do remember some of these like weird memories from camp, but I couldn't tell you what I ate for dinner 3 nights ago. It's the the the,
Well,
the random stuff that I can remember, including just random movie knowledge. It's very my mind works in weird ways.
so before we get into some puzzle pieces on this new Child's Play, I do want to ask you one other question about this series, and that is, have you seen all of these movies? Because I don't know which ones I've seen. I've seen, some. I doubt all. I certainly not the most recent ones. But I'm sure I saw the original. I remember Bride of Chucky. I think I saw the second, maybe the third.
I have seen all the movies. I own all the movies in various different some various formats. I think I have
Mhm.
1 or 2 of them on Blu-ray and the rest on DVD somewhere. Uh, in preparation to go to see this movie, it was kind of like, should I watch a couple of bad horror reboots to kind of lower my expectations, or just rewatch all the Child's Play movies? And I went with the rewatching all 7 Child's Play movies in about a
Nice.
3-4 day period.
Oh, we got an expert on our hands, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, I'm not sure. I thought I was an expert, but I believe one of our friends on the Popcorn and Puzzles actually has the one thing that my fiance won't let me have, which is the 1-to-1 scale replica of a Chucky doll from Child's Play 2. When I saw that they were making that, I was like, Carrie, can I please get this? And she's like, whenever we buy a house and you want to have your man cave, then you can buy Chucky and put him down there, because I'm just going to freak out if I find him sitting in a chair when I come home.
And rest assured, he will be in a chair, whether it's him doing it or you doing it. It's gonna happen.
Listen, I love my fiance, but absolutely would I spook her with the doll. I would just randomly put the doll in different places every day.
Oh my god, it's ridiculous. Well, why don't we get into some puzzle pieces for this new Child's Play reboot? What do you got for your first one?
So, when thinking about this, I really wanted to try and stay away from a lot of obvious um, movies. I didn't want to throw in any of the previous Child's Play movies.
Hmm.
Not because it was the inspiration for the reboot, but this reboot is so different from the
Yeah.
original series that, other than the basic concept, a killer doll named Chucky and the characters' names and some of their occupations being similar,
Mm.
this movie goes in a completely and very entertaining direction.
Yeah.
It's not a great movie, but it was a pleasant surprise that they took a lot of, at least I felt they took a lot of chances. They tried to make it a little different.
Hmm.
They didn't succeed in a lot of places, but you know what? I was pleasantly surprised, and you know what? I had a good time, which I
Yeah.
think is
Sure.
the most important thing. So the first movie I'm going to throw out is Steven Spielberg's AI,
Hmm.
which, the idea of, can a robot or artificial intelligence love? Can it have feeling? Um, y- you get a lot of that in the first act of the new Child's Play, because Chucky almost is kind of like a tragic figure in a way that he just wants he himself wants a friend. He just
Yeah.
wants to play. He's not intentionally psycho. It's kind of, he learns this almost as a child that would be exposed to random violence, that you have to teach him. You can't
Hmm.
just assume that uh, you know smart technology is really smart.
Right. Right.
So I found a lot of that with AI, and the imprinting between the robot and the mother in AI.
Sure.
They form a real connection.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost a funny twist on like the nurture versus nature thing, and like
Mhm.
the idea that that this you go into the movie expecting a killer doll, but he's not really a killer doll, even with the even with his safety protocols all switched off in the beginning and all that kind of stuff. He's still with his own his own, I guess, what do you call it? You don't call it his own desires or whatever, but
Mhm.
he's not just walking into the room and like, I want to just kill everybody. He just
Mhm.
wants to be loved and be liked and do things for his owners and make them happy.
Abs-
And he just gets led astray, unfortunately.
yeah, I mean, and yes, the climax of the movie does go, quote unquote, according to plan,
Oh,
but
it has to.
yeah, I mean, and there's some ideas I'll throw in later, because especially with Teddy Ruxpin. uh
Hmm.
I kind of like the spoil alert for anybody out there, but there is a scene at the end where other dolls come to life, and one of them happens to be a bear version
Yeah.
of of Chucky, and I was kind of like, wow, they finally made Teddy Ruxpin evil. That scares me.
It's all coming full circle.
It is.
Well, I think AI is a great puzzle piece, and yeah, I think those are some of the most interesting themes in the movie, and I do kind of wish that it did more with them. But
Mhm.
I mean, it's definitely an interesting take, and I wouldn't have expected it from the Child's Play remake.
I mean, neither did I, because from the timeline of when this movie was announced to when they started shooting, seemed so rushed
Yeah,
that I was
yeah,
kind of like, I was surprised that they actually had this kind of some of these great ideas. I just thought this was going to be another, Fog remake, or Nightmare on Elm
right,
Street, like one of those, where it's like you just
sure,
take the, you know, almost like a remix of a bunch of different ideas and just throw it at a wall and see what sticks.
Sure. Yeah, they'll show up because of Chucky, and the rest of it doesn't matter. Just
Exactly.
yeah. Well, I'm going to go with another puzzle piece, and it kind of builds off of what you were just talking about with the whole the AI thing, but kind of going to the next step of what's happening within the movie. This is the first one that came to mind while I was watching it, and that is Chappie. Which
Ooh.
is a love it or hate it movie. I happen to love it. But it's a movie from Neil Blomkamp that deals with this AI robot that is found by these like thug rapper dudes, which of course is Die Antwoord,
Mhm.
and they kind of teach it to do all this shitty shit and be a kind of a loser gangsta type character. But the people are responsible for turning Chucky into what he becomes, into the killer doll that he becomes in this version of the Child's Play story. And I thought it was an interesting parallel that that he gets taught these things. And we're just talking about that with AI, but yeah, again, Chappie being the continuation of what happens within the story.
Well, I feel like there have been a lot of movies in regards to the idea of kind of teaching the bad nature towards the technology.
Mhm.
Um, and another puzzle piece that I would bring up and has been brought up in a couple of your other podcasts is Terminator 2,
Mhm.
because there is a moment towards the middle of the film also where John Connor has to teach the robot pretty much how to be more human. Now, the
Sure,
robot
sure.
doesn't understand what he's doing. He's just kind of mimicking his creator's movements and
Right,
what
right.
he wants to do. And again, that kind of goes into what we were talking about with AI and Chappie. It's just smart technology that really still has to be taught what to do.
Yeah. Absolutely. It even has the line, you can't kill anybody. That's right in there.
Exactly. And and when I go back to T2, I keep thinking to myself, imagine what would happen if after the T1000 is melted and the term and Schwarzenegger turns to Edward Furlong and says, "You know what? I'm not going to melt myself down. I'm actually going to protect you for the rest of your life." And
Mm.
John Connor turns to him and be like, "Nah, I got my mom here. Listen, here's my email. If you want to hit me up on Instagram, that's great. But we're going to go this way, and we'll catch up and get coffee at another time."
That brings up an interesting question. The Terminator's from the future. Does he have an email address?
Uh, I mean, I guess before Skynet blew us all to hell, and
Sure.
the electromagnetic pulse from all the nuclear weapons shut down everything. But that's very complicated timeline, and I'm just going to get a headache from that.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good point.
Either that, or we're
So
just going to spend the entire podcast talking about what if.
yeah,
What
that can
if?
happen. That can happen very, very easily. Um, so, would Terminator 2 your puzzle piece then?
Yes, T2 is a puzzle piece.
Beautiful. Well, then I'm going to go on to another one then, and this one might be a little bit of a stretch, but my next puzzle piece is actually King Kong,
Ooh.
and the reason I bring King Kong up is because he's this it kind of continues what we are just saying there, but he's this character who's just kind of out of his element, and he doesn't mean to do bad, but humans just keep pushing him and they keep pushing him. And like you said, Chucky is a tragic figure in this story, and he certainly doesn't set out to do evil. He just gets pushed in that direction, and then maybe his circuits weren't really set in the right direction to begin with, but he maybe wasn't ever going to cause any kind of damage or cause any trouble if people hadn't gotten in the way and made it that way. And that reminded me of the classic King Kong story.
That's it. You know what? That's a very good point. I didn't even think of that. That
Eh?
went right over my head to not even think of that.
Well,
That's a very good point.
glad you
Uh,
like it.
yeah, absolutely. Um, well, I'll go to one more obvious one before I go to an obscure one.
Okay.
I, Robot.
Mm,
Now, the idea that robots are produced for mass consumerism to help with essentially everyday living and everyday chores. Essentially, that's kind of what the quote unquote buddy doll, not the good guy in this case, the buddy doll was created for, was created to, you know, to be a learning tool for children and to essentially, in some ways assist families with everyday chores.
Sure.
I'm not exactly sure why what company out there, whether it be Amazon, Google, Apple, or Caslin in this movie
Yeah.
calls it. Um, why would anybody let a children's doll be able to control your car as well as the heating and air conditioning in your house?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like this movie exists in a world where, horror movies clearly exist,
Mhm.
but I'm guessing Child's Play didn't exist because people are not prepared for killer dolls whatsoever.
It's not even that. It's just this is a world where apparently this Caslin company has a monopoly on everything
Uh,
because this buddy doll can hack into pretty much every like electronic product, which I guess every electronic product also had to have their safety features turned off. Not sure how that happened. Um, because I
and
understand.
I didn't think of that.
Yeah, I mean,
So we're
I'm
even.
I'm not exactly sure. Like, there's a scene where Chucky somehow magically controls a car through the cloud.
Hmm.
I guess not magically, technology.
I think that
Uh,
happened in a Fast and Furious movie too, where they just all of a sudden they were able to control every car. Like what?
well, I mean, yeah. I mean, the Fast and Furious movies, I think, kind of, you know, kind of lost believability somewhere halfway through the first one.
Yeah, probably pretty much.
I mean, listen, I'd love to see a Maserati jump from skyscraper to skyscraper in Dubai. I don't think it's possible, but it did happen in a Fast and Furious movie. So
Well, then it must be possible.
listen. If global warming's a thing, so must be gravity. But that's another conversation for another time, kids. But yeah, I'm not exactly sure what company not only has a hold on everything because every product is by this Caslin company. Um,
Yeah.
that this doll could just easily just hack into things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so but I like the idea of this product. It's mass produced. It helps with everyday life. It's supposed to be more, um, it's supposed to be more of a helpful tool than kind of a pain in the neck, which is what it really
Right.
turns out to be. And that's kind of what the movie version of iRobot was, whereas essentially, this product everybody has it. It's so useful to everybody. Why would you not have it? Because eventually, what happens if your robot goes bad?
Yeah. Sounds like iRobot, which I actually don't think I ever ended up seeing, but it sounds like it was like a decade too early. That would do really well now.
It actually wasn't as bad of a movie as I thought it was, and it's not too Will Smith jokey.
Hmm.
But when I saw that Alex Proyas, who a big fan of his in the '90s with The Crow and Dark City,
Hmm.
when I saw he was doing, it, I was like, you know what? He's a very visionary, very smart director. I'm actually interested to see what happens here.
Sure.
And you hear about it later that script rewrites and producers have one thing to say, and the director has something else to say, and it never really turned into what it was supposed to be. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
the next thing you know, you're Alex Proyas doing another movie with Nick Cage where he's just screaming at something.
Didn't he do Gods in Egypt too?
Oh, he did that too. I was thinking of
Yeah.
Knowing, but yes, he did.
Okay.
He did do Gods in Egypt. And listen, I understand why some directors might get frustrated at critics that just blast movies for no reason. But if you're listening, Mr. Proyas, and I'm sure you're not, but if you are, Gods of Egypt was terrible. I'm sorry, it was. You gave it your best shot. Thank you. But no, this one's on you, man.
It made for a good "How did this get made" episode, though.
Oh, yes, it did.
So, you know what? I'm just gonna piggyback right off what you were saying there with iRobot because I have a puzzle piece that's not a movie, and this
Hmm.
would be a good time to bring it up. And that is now. Before I say it, I should say also that I could have potentially brought up Jordan Peele's Us, but it's obviously too new to truly be an inspiration. But Jordan Peele's Us did use the Amazon Alexa to some effect in the horror world through those little scenes of it, and so I was just thinking of the Amazon Alexa as a product, which I think is the main real life version of what Kazlan was doing is Amazon and all their connected products and their security stuff and all that. And I think it again, we were talking earlier about how it's kind of surprising that a Child's Play remake of all things would have big themes, everything involved with Chucky, but it's kind of surprising it would even attempt to take on something as big as this whole modern connected world that we've got. I mean, on the surface, it seems like a pretty obvious choice, but to actually even try to give it any thought and try to do something with it and actually make it more than just a very, very surface level thing is very difficult. I don't know that it 100% succeeded at trying to do it, but it at least was trying.
You know what? It doesn't 100% succeed, and you know what? It may not have even 50% succeeded. But you know what? I would rather see a reboot take the core idea, do something different with it, and fail versus just remake the last version of that movie.
Right,
Almost,
because we already have that.
Exactly. And I think of a movie like the remake of The Hills Have Eyes, which a lot of people loved.
Mm,
And while it's gorier and it's glossier looking, the dialogue's exactly the same, the kills are exactly the same, the plot, the story, everything unfolds exactly the same.
mm,
What was the point of making it then?
yeah.
I feel like the best remakes are the ones that just take those core ideas and just make their own thing of it, whether it be Evil Dead, Cronenberg's The Fly,
Mm.
um, Dawn of the Dead. Uh, yes, I did throw out something positive about Zack Snyder. I know somebody out there is going to be very happy about that. But I will say that was a very good movie he made. Um, and John Carpenter's The Thing.
Mhm.
Those, they are very different than the movies that they're based off of. I mean,
Right.
even Scarface is very different than the Paul Muni version.
Sure. Absolutely.
So again, I would rather see a movie try something different, and even if it fails, at least it was trying to do something different.
Absolutely. Absolutely. At least it's freaking trying.
Absolutely. Um, so here I will go with a bit of an obscure one from the 1990s. Rachel
Mhm.
Talalay's Ghost in the Machine,
Okay.
which came out around the time of Lawnmower Man and a lot of those other Fear, VR, computers, and other technology. Ghost in the Machine actually would be the perfect child for the original Child's Play movies and this Child Play movie. If they had a baby,
Right,
Ghost in the
right.
Machine would actually be perfect because it's about a serial killer that somehow gets his soul zapped into the internet and uses everyday household items to kill people. He even, I believe there's a kill in the movie where the dishwasher overflows and the babysitter's stepping in the water, and then the dishwasher, electrocutes her.
Oh, that's awesome. That rocks.
Yes. Little weird movie knowledge. The babysitter that got killed in that scene
Mhm.
was actually the lead actress from Leprechaun 2. If anybody has ever seen it other than myself, there you go. Siobhan Durkin, I think her name was. I told you, I
Wow.
just am full of useless information.
Yeah, I'm learning something. I'm learning a lot of things during this episode.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, yeah, that sounds like a perfect example, though, of like it seriously does kind of bridge together the ideas of both the original Child's Play and this Child's Play, like combined into one movie almost.
Yes, however, Ghost in the Machine fails more than the remake of Child's Play and some of the other sequels. I mean,
I'd imagine so.
it's one of those movies where it was a Friday night. You know, 13, 14 years old. You go to the movie store. Well, I've seen this horror movie, this horror movie, this horror movie. Well, this is new. Oh,
Oh,
okay.
what's this one?
Yeah, what's this one? What?
I'm looking at
Karen Allen from
the
Indiana
poster
Jones?
right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. I'm looking at the poster right now online, and it's a great poster. Fantastic
Uh,
work.
yes. And if anybody uh, remembers who Rachel Talalay is, well, I mean, she's directed a lot of CW television shows, but she's probably most known for working with John Waters. She directed and wrote part of Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare,
Hmm.
as well as one of the original comic book bombs, Tank Girl,
Yo,
with
yeah,
Roy
Tank
Bateman.
Girl. Look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Damn. Tank Girl's gotten a big cult following over the years, though, hasn't it?
It's a lot of fun. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
you don't take it seriously, but it's actually a lot of fun. It's actually
Yeah.
interesting cast too.
Huh. Yeah. Damn, she has a nice little cult filmography here. I'm just scrolling through it real quick, but yeah, no, that's a great puzzle piece, though. I'm gonna go. So I like that you've got these deep cuts because my I have two more puzzle pieces as we go through this, and they're both like fairly recent, like mainstream major movies.
Mhm.
So I'm glad you've got us covered. So the next one I'm gonna bring up. I've got a couple of different reasons for bringing it up, but it is the recent remake of Stephen King's It.
I was going to throw that in at one
Yeah,
point also. I think I
absolutely.
think you and I are probably going to end thinking on the same page here, but go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, there's a few things. I mean, first of all, funny, ultra gory horror it hasn't been a thing for a while, but it was that, and I think Child's Play does it as well. And I used to love these kind of movies. I mean, everybody knows like the Evil Dead series are like, some of my favorite movies. And you don't get a lot of like funny, gory, over the top horror anymore. And so I think it kind of opened a door for that. For hopefully we're going to get more stuff like that. And Child's Play, clearly is one of them. Also, it just being a remake of an old, horror property, which, of course, once it was the biggest R-rated opening, I think, of all time, maybe, I'd probably open the floodgates. But also, of course, another major reason is the focus on, Andy's friends. And, they're kind of like a little misfit group of friends, just like what are they called? The
The Losers
Losers? Or
Club.
yeah, Losers Club. And yeah, it's just kind of like that similar thing. You could almost also point to like a Stranger Things as a version of that puzzle piece as well. But yeah, it's like a very popular thing now to have that group of like, kids that are like all kind of misfits, and then they get thrust into this insane situation.
I absolutely agree. That is where I was going with that. You could even take it a bit step further, where it's almost Spielbergian to a
Mm-hmm.
degree, where the kids kind of group together to fight the foe, whether it have been E.T., uh, Goonies in a way, even though it's not Spielberg, or the
Sure.
Spielberg inspired Super Eight.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
Um,
absolutely.
those type of movies. And to tell you the truth, I liked that. That was also one of the other ideas that I liked, which I wish they took a little bit further, of him having that core group of friends and them all teaming up to kind of defeat Chucky.
Mm,
I kind of wish they did more with that, because you're so used to that final character. Most of the time in horror movies that they teach you it's the final female. In
sure.
some cases, it is a male, but that final character, there's always that one-on-one battle to defeat the person that has, essentially been, chasing you and trying to kill you during the entire movie. It's
Mm.
nice every once in a while when you get a group of people to work as a team to defeat the enemy.
Yeah, it is. It's fun and it gives for a lot of fun, personalities and there's a lot of comedy to mine from that as well. Which I think that's part of the Spielberg influence as well.
Oh, absolutely. I think that was done intentionally, trying to
Yeah,
make it very 80s Spielbergian,
yeah,
Chris Columbus type of relationship amongst the kids.
yeah, absolutely. So what do you got for your next one?
I have one more major movie. However, I'm going to throw out one that this is from a movie, but I guess this is also a gripe about modern horror tropes.
Okay.
uh, which is so one of the things about modern horror tropes that I really just don't like, is that when they introduce a character, they give him there's a trait or a disability that really doesn't serve a purpose.
Mm.
Um, so the idea of making Andy in this film deaf,
Right, right.
there's no real purpose to it. I guess the idea is supposed to make him more sympathetic, even though he's clearly a loner, doesn't have the best living situation. You're already kind of sympathetic for him. Um, and the thing that came to my mind, and this is going to sound really weird, was Rocky 4. Now,
Mm.
not actually the movie Rocky 4, but have you ever heard the story about the bit with the robot in Rocky 4?
Yeah, no, what is this story?
So the story with the robot was um, Sylvester Stallone saw that this robot was actually used to help autistic kids, pretty much function in class. And, we're talking about, 30 years ago, so a lot has changed
Mhm.
since. Um, essentially introducing this type of technology to assist, people with disabilities,
Mhm.
which was an idea that I wish they did put in the movie and maybe would have worked if they'd made, and if they really needed to give Andy a disability
Uh-huh.
to make him autistic and then kind of have this as a helpful teaching tool to help him cope,
Mhm.
and would have also kind of built on the um, the attachment issue between them, because
Right.
Chucky is clearly attached to him, but Andy, once he gets friends, is no longer attached. It would have been an interesting thing if they had this real attachment issue because they both really needed each other throughout the movie with a situation like that.
Mm.
However, that didn't actually happen in the movie, and this probably has absolutely nothing to do with anything. It just would have been a wish list.
Sure. No, I totally understand, and that totally sounds like something that Stallone would do too. Is wanting to like incorporate something like that into the movie. But yeah, no, I totally agree though. Like a lot of modern horror movies do seem to do that, where every one of the main kids has to have some kind of some kind of disability or something that just supposed to add to the sympathizing. But yeah, I mean, the kid's already, has a tough go of it as it is.
Yeah, so to make him have hearing issues, it doesn't really come into play. He's already sympathetic. It's kind of like, why do we need this?
Yeah.
It's like the cowboy hat in the Halloween rebootquel. The mayor's walking around with a cowboy hat on for
Right.
no
For
real reason. Like
no reason.
you're in kind of like the suburbs of Chicago. It's not really, farm country.
Well,
You
to
know,
tie it all together, pretty soon we've got Rambo 5 coming out, and we got Rambo with a cowboy hat. So, yeah, so.
oh, Stallone. Oh, you're making all my dreams come true tonight.
Oh man. Well, before we talk about more of our beloved heroes with cowboy hats on,
Yes.
I have one more puzzle piece, and this is one of those situations. This has come up on the show a couple times here and there, where we're talking about a remake and a movie that was definitely inspired by the original. I think inspired the remake itself. Kind of a cyclical thing there. But I am bringing up the Annabelle movies as well as any other of the recent crop of creepy doll movies. Obviously, they, handle it in a very different way. Those are, ghost stories, basically, whereas this is like a straight up slasher horror film. However, there is just, such a huge renewed interest in creepy dolls because of the Annabelle movies. And I think that probably had somewhat of an inspiration on the production of this, on the idea of, well, we need to make more creepy doll movies. What's an idea we can have? Oh, why don't we go back to Chucky? Let's get back to Chucky and let's do this,
I mean, do I think of it? I mean, it is possible.
Mhm.
I mean, I personally don't really see the connection, only because Annabelle. While yes, with the creepy doll aspect, but
Uh-huh.
Annabelle is never really alive.
Sure.
She's never really a living being, whether it be a soul of a person or AI. It almost seems like it's just a vessel,
Mhm.
almost a doorway for other spooky ghosts and goblins to eventually, invade that space of whoever the main characters are to terrorize them.
Totally.
Um, I mean, while the Annabelle doll is extremely creepy and very
Mm.
frightening. Actually, I should probably get one of those for the man cave. That'll really frighten my fiance. Um, I guess as much as that could be an inspiration, as much as the Full Moon Puppet Master movies, which I think you and I actually spoke about once before, as it was the new one was free on Amazon Prime.
Oh yeah, and I still haven't watched it. I bought it for free, and I gotta watch that. And I know Tom Lennon wrote it. I love him, so
I do
I gotta
too.
watch it.
I got about 5 or 10 minutes into it. I got to Udo Kier's cameo, and that was
Uh-huh.
pretty much as far
You're
as far
done.
as I've gotten into it. Not that I'm done. I do want to watch it. I just so many movies, so much content, so little time.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. But back to the puzzle piece. One more note is I think that you're absolutely right in what you're saying about Annabelle as a character and as a story. It like doesn't fit the mold, but I think it's more of as a Hollywood seeing dollar signs
Yes.
inspiration.
Well, I mean, that was another conversation. You know what? Why? Clearly it's based on one person's perspective. If the original was done properly, that it doesn't need a remake or doesn't warrant
Hmm.
it. That is everybody's perspective. Um, but again, the fact that that property is already out there, you really don't have to do that much to kind of rework the script, other than to
Hmm.
try to update it.
Sure.
Um, sometimes it works, and sometimes you end up with Gus Van Sant's Psycho. But that's again, you know what? Money talks, and that's just what we end up with.
Absolutely. So, what do you got for your next puzzle piece?
So my last puzzle piece was is a big film from a few years ago, and is a superhero film, Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Oh, okay.
Um, when you think about early on in the film, how Ultron starts learning about humanity, and essentially, mistaken peace in our time is only done through violence, is
Mhm.
almost where Chucky kind of starts to to figure out, I can achieve my goals through violence after
Mhm.
watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure what his behavior would have been if he had watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation. But if Chucky started doing an impersonation of Matthew McConaughey just screaming in this random kitchen,
I
for,
want that movie so
so
bad
so
right
I.
now.
Now that I think about it, I think I don't know, how much does it cost to make a movie?
Anybody listening right now, we're starting an Indiegogo campaign
We're,
like right now.
yes,
We want to make
Indiegogo.
this theoretical movie.
Yes, we do. We need more Matthew McConaughey just going nuts for
Yeah.
no real reason other than to choose scenery, and hopefully with Killer Doll.
Oh my god. Now I want to talk about Serenity for an hour.
You know what? I have to watch it, and then I want to talk about it. I unfortunately read the Wikipedia page, so I know what happens,
Oh,
but
it doesn't matter. It's
it
still
it doesn't do it
amazing.
justice.
No, it's
Okay.
so good. It's so good. Please watch it, and we'll talk about it one of these days.
Oh, absolutely. I love a good bad horror, a good bad movie, any chance I can
Right.
get sometimes.
Oh, and it is the best bad movie of the year. That's for sure.
And then also just to add in, later in the movie, Ultron transfers his consciousness into other clones of him, which essentially
Mhm.
does happen at the end, where you've got, blonde hair, blue eyes, Chucky,
Mhm.
African American Chucky, and
Mhm.
Bear Chucky.
Mhm.
So I think we covered all the bases in regards to doll race relations. Um,
Well, let's not forget also Irish Chucky.
well, this took place in a toy store, not the Blarney Stone. Otherwise, I
I
mean,
mean,
after,
it was a good Easter egg. It was fun.
yeah, I I'm not gonna lie, I really just want to see the sequel focus on the bear doll. Just this crazy bear doll running. Actually, that sounds like another Full Moon. If you've ever seen the movie Demonic Toys, another one of
Oh,
those
I think I
super.
did back in the day.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think there was a killer bear,
Nice.
and a killer Betsy Wetsy.
First time the phrase Betsy Wetsy, or Killer Betsy Wetsy, I should say, has been uttered on this show.
Uh, well, that's
I'm
that's
happy.
two first times today. We have
Yes.
haven't spoken to this kid from Jew camp in 25 years, and Killer Betsy Wetsy.
There we go. Well, why don't we do the finished puzzle and then we'll get into any of our closing thoughts on Child's Play. So the finished puzzle, all the movies that we just talked about includes AI, Chappie, Terminator 2, King Kong, iRobot, Ghost in the Machine, Rocky 4, Annabelle, and Avengers Age of Ultron. So
It's a very
yeah,
diverse filmography right there.
it sure is.
We got a little everything.
Yeah, the funny thing is, at least at the beginning of the conversation, we were getting a lot of tragedy and, a lot of classic tragedy influencing a Chucky movie, which is pretty interesting. But wrapping this thing up, I mean, overall, I know you liked the movie. I liked it too. I think you might have liked it a little more than me. We kind of talked before we started, but overall, I do think that it was, about more successful, I'd say, than I would have expected.
I absolutely agree. I think it was more successful. I think it was trying to do a lot more than some of the other remakes and in other horror movies out there. I mean,
Hmm.
not Hereditary. We know that can't be touched. Um,
Sure.
but basic horror movies, slasher films. It definitely tried to do something very different with it, other than let's say the reboot of Halloween, where it's
Hmm.
essentially I'm just kind of sequelizing the first Halloween by remaking Halloween H2O,
Hmm.
uh, but really kind of take out all the real strong feminism in a
Yeah,
way.
it really did. Oh man, I could talk about that for a while too. Like, it really, I don't understand how people like think it had a lot of strong feminism. It doesn't make sense to me.
It started off in a way of she wants to fight back against her aggressor who's been chasing her entire life, but unlike H2O,
It
she
doesn't
never
pay
really
off.
gets that moment
Yeah, it
to
never
kind
pays
of
off.
really become the stalker, and he should become the prey.
Yeah, exactly. That's where it was headed, and it just they never do it. I'm getting annoyed at that movie right now.
Why is it on? Is it on your TV? I think it was on mine while we were actually having this conversation.
No, no.
But if you take anything away from the Halloween reboot, the score is phenomenal.
Yeah, I'll give it that at least. And speaking of which, this had some good music in it as well. Pretty good score. I don't have the composer's name at hand, but pretty good score. Um,
I think his name is Bear McCready.
oh, was it Bear
Some
McCready that did this
Yes,
one? Oh, I
it
didn't
was.
know that. Yeah, I love his scores. Yeah, that's doesn't surprise me then. Wow, that's
I mean,
cool.
some of the music was good. The idea of kind of using a toy orchestra,
Hmm.
very similar to Joe DeLuca's score of Curse of Chucky, and Graham Raval's main theme of Child's Play 2.
Yeah,
That all kind of used the kind of the tinker, the child's piano,
yeah, yeah.
and kind of that is child xylophone to make the score. So, I mean, it is a good theme, but it had been done before in the series.
Yeah, you kind of have to though with like when you're dealing with a killer doll, it's like it's kind of necessary. I've even done it once before in my music composing career where I scored a killer doll movie. So
Oh, yeah. Oh, you're in the
yeah,
killer doll business too, huh?
yeah, absolutely,
S-
absolutely.
Excellent.
Next, when we get our sequel with Matthew McConaughey going, I'm looking forward to scoring that one.
Uh, it,
Um,
I just want to see the toy Matthew McConaughey just with his little shotgun going me, or however that scene went in Texas Chainsaw Next Generation, which,
fantastic.
yeah, I haven't seen that in a while. I don't want to.
Well, I think that about does it for Child's Play. Adam, as I always do, I ask my guests if they have a recent movie that they've watched that they'd like to recommend.
Uh, you know what? Here's one. I finally got to sit down and watch Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and
Nice.
I loved it.
It's
I
so
thought
good.
the animation was great. The characters were well done. Like everything about it just seemed just really well done and much smarter than almost had any right to be. Because
Yeah, yeah.
the kind of that age of those smart cartoon movies, whether it been Batman Mask of the Phantasm, you really don't see a lot of that stuff anymore. And this just reminded me of that, and I also really just admired the animation for it. I just thought it was so well done.
Yeah, such a cool movie, and like great message to it, great action to it. I mean, it's a lot of all the actors that do the voices, like some really great performances. I mean, yeah, I couldn't agree more. Great movie.
I mean, I was going to say Rocket Man, but I feel like I mean, everybody said wonderful things about Rocket Man. I could add to it, but I'll think of something else.
Yeah.
So there we ended up with Spider-Man.
Right on. Well, hey, this has been great. Adam, is there anything you want to plug? Anything out there?
Well, I'm an East Coast insurance broker, so I really don't want to plug that, and I'm not on Twitter. But if you are looking to contact me, or you heard this podcast and you just want to tell me how terrible I am and awful, and I should stop talking about movies, contact Dave. Dave will tell you where to find me, or
There
on
you go.
the group chat, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces.
There you go.
You can find me there and curse me out all you like. I don't take offense to it.
Well, this was great, Adam. Let's talk again over a actual audio conversation sometime before another 25 years. Does that sound like a good plan?
Oh, absolutely. Maybe at some point before, I get married, maybe I'll end up in Vegas, and hopefully we could sit down and have a cup of coffee or grab a bite to eat.
Go see a movie.
Go to a movie. Say hi to the parents who I haven't seen Sonny and Dick in a long time.
I told them that we were doing this today, and they're like, "Oh, wow, that's insane."
Again, the power of Facebook. If it wasn't for Facebook, it might not be until 50 years we speak again.
Well, yeah, this was great. I'm really glad to have you on.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime. Hopefully, we'll get to do it again.
Hey, I'm Josh Bell.
I'm Jason Harris. Hey, Josh, we're friends in real life, but we're also co-hosts on this new podcast called
Awesome Movie Year, where we take a look back at an awesome year for movies and do a deep dive looking at movies including the Best Picture winner, the biggest movie at the box office, future cult classics, and more.
Including the biggest flop. And this season, we're doing 1994. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. That could be Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or Spotify. We're all over the web as well at Awesome Movie Year on all the socials and awesomemovieyear.com. So please like us, subscribe, and if you do like us, give us a 5-star rating because we love you.
All right, so that does it for our conversation about Child's Play. I still do think it's hilarious that Child's Play and Toy Story 4 came out on the same weekend. You're clever, Hollywood. You're very clever. You can check out that episode as well, which should be up by the time you are hearing this one. And, of course, you just heard the promo for Awesome Movie Year, which is now live. Wherever you're listening to Piecing It Together, you can find Awesome Movie Year. That is a new podcast that I am producing, which is hosted by Josh Bell and Jason Harris, and you'll also hear me on the show as well. I chime in a little here and there. But the introduction episode is up, and on July 3rd, the first episode will be up. And it's going to be a really fun show. We've already got the first few seasons planned out. It's going to be 12 episodes a season, plus possibly a couple bonus episodes here and there. And it's going to be a great show. So absolutely check it out. awesomemovieyear.com. Check them out on Facebook, Twitter, all that as well. And as a reminder, you can find Piecing It Together on Facebook and Twitter and all that, and you should be following us at Piecing Pod on Twitter, at Piecing Pod on Instagram, and Piecing It Together on Facebook, and of course our Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces Facebook group. What else can you do? Oh, we're on Patreon. Right now, all you can really get is a bunch of my music because I have albums out that are available for sale on iTunes and all that kind of stuff. But you can get the albums, not for free because you're paying to, support the show on Patreon, but they're included with your membership. So you can sign up for Patreon if you like and, donate a little bit to the show. We will be starting to put some bonus content on there. I'm not 100% sure what that's going to look like yet, but we are planning it as I speak right now. Why do I always say we? I mean, it's really me who's planning it, although I'm sure I'll rope some of these co-hosts into being a part of whatever that bonus content is. But there will be content on there coming soon. So if you want to support the show, check out our Patreon, patreon.com/piecingpod. Of course, links are in the show notes. The other thing you can do to help support the show is rate and review us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. And of course, share the show with your friends. We would really appreciate it if you did that. So that does it for today. And, I think it's kind of required that for the outro piece of music that I play, I got to play the piece of music that I did for a movie called Heidi, which is available on Amazon Prime to watch from director Daniel Ray, and it is a creepy doll movie. And I mean, I think I actually might have played it back when we did the Nun episode because of the whole Annabelle connection. I might have, I don't really remember. But I mean, how could I not play it during a Child's Play episode? So this is the theme from the movie Heidi, which is a small independent horror film that, like I said, you can watch on Amazon Prime. It is found footage, so there's not much music, but the music that is in the film is all done by me. And this is the main theme. And enjoy it, and we'll be back with more Piecing It Together soon.
and all points west.